Hello, my name is Tom Singer, and this is Concert Cues from the Billings Symphony. We're here today with our guest artist for the Romeo and Juliet concert on Valentine's weekend. Pedja, I'm not going to get it right. Why don't you give it to us, please?
So it's not Romeo and it's not Juliet, but it's Pedja Muzijevic. Very, very simple.
Just like Smith, right?
That's the one.
Maybe in Sarajevo, but not here. So let's start about your background. I mean, you started in a very different place than New York City.
Yes, but I'm coming to Montana, hopefully to go to Belgrade, which is of course part of named after my.
Of course, we also have towns like Havre that's Montana's got a lot of weird names in it. So. Anyway.
So I was born in Sarajevo, which was at the time when I was born Yugoslavia, and now is Bosnia. And I went to school there, and then I moved to Zagreb, to what is now Croatia, to continue my education. And I came to the States in 1984 when I was 20 years old. And went to Curtis Institute in Philadelphia, and went to Peabody Conservatory in Baltimore, and then the Juilliard School, and I stayed in New York.
And you must have established some credentials to go to the Curtis Institute and some places like that. You auditioned for those and were accepted. You must have been a pretty impressive player by that point.
No, I'm sure they were desperate, but I did audition, yes.
Well, you managed to build a very interesting career. Your biography has a lot of amazing things on it. One of them that, of course, is local interest is Tippett Rise. So what's your connection with that organization?
So I'm very honored and fortunate to be the artistic advisor to Tippett Rise Art Center. And so Montana is a very, very special place in my heart. I first came to Tippett Rise to play by invitation of Charlie Hamlin, who held this position before me, who sadly passed away. And so it was my first encounter with Peter and Kathleen Halstead and Tippett Rise. It's amazing land and amazing hall and just amazing facility. So it's my position is a bit sad because Charlie Hamlin passed away, but so his aura is around me. He was when he passed away, and I spoke at a variety of memorials, I always said, if you went to 3 classical concerts in your life, you were touched by Charlie Hamlin, because he was one of the major artist agents, but he was responsible for the career of Joshua Bell and Andre Watts and Lila Josefovitz and Arlene Auger and Jean-Yves Thibaudet and many other people. And he always said, I look after artists, and that's what he did.
So he wasn't a performer so much as a manager?
He was a manager, yeah. He was a manager, and then he worked for Orchestra of St. Luke's in New York and for Tippett Rise, and that's how I was very fortunate to get to Tippett Rise. And I don't think any of us forget the first entrance to Tippett Rise. I was a kid late in the day, the dirt road, and then there was now I'm going to show my urban creds. Is it herd of sheep? There were many sheep on the road. And so we had to stop the car, and there was that glorious Alexander Calder sculpture at the cross. And I thought, well, there's nothing like it.
There really is nothing like it. So you'll be playing there more in the future, we hope, when this COVID thing gets past us?
Yeah, I hope we can all go back to that magical spot and meet there together. So yeah, I can't wait to spend more time there. So ironically, my last trip before the pandemic was to Tippett Rise, where I recorded something that will eventually come out as a Bach family album of music of Johann Sebastian Bach and some of his sons. And I flew back home on March 14th, and that was that was my last trip. So it's quite meaningful that my first trip after, well, not quite, but the first big trip during the pandemic is back to Billings.
Yeah, well, and we're so glad you're coming. We're so glad you can come, that we've managed to make this work. And all that, but the territory is going to look a little different. There's some snow on the ground now.
There was a lot of snow in March when I left, and actually when Anne Harrigan emailed me about this concert, my first thing I said to her, I just want to salute you for doing this, and I want to salute you for, you know, doing in whatever little space we are allowed to function in, you know,
Yeah.
safely. So I think it's really, really impressive that Building Symphony is doing this.
Well, and so the piece that you're playing I assume, works in an environment where you've got a smaller orchestra and that sort of thing. So let's talk about the piece. What's special about it to you?
So I'm a huge fan of Mozart piano concertos. I think it's some of his best music, and it's some of my favorite music to play. I don't know exactly why. I could sort of guess that I'm a big opera lover, so I think the opera is very present in Mozart piano concertos. It's full of gestures and characters. And this particular piece, written very early on, I mean, Mozart's life was sadly so short that age 21 is mid-career, ironically. And but he wrote it for a young pianist whose name is a bit of a mystery. She's either called Yenemy or Jenemy or Genome, or so it's in various languages. And it is reputed that she was the daughter of a French choreographer who were passing through Salzburg, and that Mozart wrote it for her, still at this point trying to kind of position himself as a composer, really looking for employment. I mean, he was looking for patronage and work. But what's interesting about this particular concerto is that because it was written for her with the idea that she would play it, it is quite written out. And what I mean by that is that Mozart was first and foremost a piano virtuoso, and he wrote for himself to play. And the way he made living, especially later on when he moved to Vienna, he would organize these, what he called academies, which now we would call concerts. And he would sell subscriptions and then write concertos and sometimes symphonies, hire musicians to play. He would play the piano. And then later on, he would publish these concertos because, of course, by this point, he becomes quite popular. But he was a bit stingy about exactly what he played. So his printed music is often a bit of a skeleton of what he would have kind of improvised and ornamented. So this particular work, there's a few other examples, but very few, in which we have an actual kind of roadmap of what he would have done, or one of many possibilities he would have done. So it's a really interesting piece of information for us.
So his concerts, he would just make stuff up, I take it, at times.
Well, obviously within the themes that he, you know, we do have, you know, I would say 70 or 80% of what he would have played, but there is certainly 30 or so, or maybe 25% that he would have added. Sometimes they're just simple ornaments, sometimes they're, you know, sort of bigger gestures that he would fill out, and, you know, in interesting ways. So yeah, and probably differently every time.
Yeah, and in some ways similar to what jazz musicians do, rock musicians. I mean,
very much so. I always think how, you know, 300 years from now, if somebody woke up and picked up the sheet music of Beatles Yesterday or something, in which you just have like the clonk chord, you think, that's not what they did. So this is what sometimes we musicians, classical musicians, deal with. We get this kind of roadmap, and, you know, we have to. Sometimes, in some cases, composers did the whole written out thing.
Yeah, the whole debate in pop music about whether covers should be exact or not, and that just isn't a choice in classical music. Everybody's bringing something fresh to it.
Yeah.
So you have an interesting habit of doing concerts that combine things like Mozart with composers like John Cage, and I'm curious about that. What is it why is it you mix those kind of performances together?
Well, it's a psychological condition that I clearly have. So I love juxtapositions in everything, whether it's in food or design or music. So I feel that in each one of those cases, we as the consumer or customer get to react in a perhaps more fresh way to either side of the equation. So if you put an old object, and it doesn't have to be some, you know, multi-million-dollar old object, but an old object in a lobby of a new building, establish a dialogue of some sort. Let's say an old piece of furniture in a very sleek, you know, you react to it subconsciously. If you put some dried fruit in a stew, that also your taste buds react to it. So it's the same in music. I find that juxtaposing different flavors refreshes my interest in when I go back to, let's say, flavor A after flavor B. And I perhaps hear it with a little different, kind of a palate cleanser in both directions. And then, of course, I also, because I love a lot of different kind of music, that also allows me to kind of get all of my favorites in one bag.
So, what does the Mozart piece tell a story for you? Is there a narrative to it? Is there a narrative John Cage that's different? Or how does that work? How do you feel about that?
So I do think that music is an abstract narrative, and abstract because there are no words. So the narration is not like, you know, Peter got up and then opened the door, but we do react to sounds. We do react to sounds both horizontally, meaning as they follow each other, and vertically, as they happen at the same time. So, and I think we hone our reaction as we listen to it more and more. So if you listen to a lot of country music, you're much more attuned to subtle differences between different styles or different singers, different songwriters. And it's the same in classical music or rap or whatever kind of music that you react to. Now, unlike songs, we instrumentalists don't have words. So we are even more abstract. But honestly, even songs, I mean, I grew up, you know, listening to American and English pop music, having no idea what they're saying. And still every so often I hear a song that I, you know, heard in childhood, and I think, that's what she's saying? I had no idea.
I have that experience all the time.
So it is, I do, I do think of gestures. I think of colors. I think of whether something is inside or outside. I think whether something is at night or in the morning. I think if it's inside, is there a carpet? Is the floor stone? And I think if you kind of challenge yourself as you listen to any music and you start posing these very simple questions, you realize that you have a lot of reactions. Sometimes it's very simple. Sometimes it's really like, oh, it's night. It has to be night. Or it's raining. It's definitely raining. So anyway, I do think about it, and it does evolve as I, you know, live with the piece for this point in my life, decades. It doesn't completely change, but it sort of hones itself in different ways, and it's a fun way to listen to music.
So when did you first meet Mozart's Ninth Concerto?
Actually, in a somewhat hurried situation, I jumped in for a colleague in Toronto and played two concertos, played this concerto and the Mendelssohn Concerto for piano, violin, and string orchestra, which I think I learned in all of like a week or something, or I tried to learn in a week. And so it was somewhat traumatic, but incredibly joyful.
And so does playing it again here bring back a positive memory or a little bit of fear, or what goes with that?
Very much positive. Though it is interesting, it will be the first time I will play in front of people in almost a year.
Oh, sure.
And, you know, I mean, other than, you know, we've all got into filming, and, you know, I filmed 3 recital programs in my apartment, and then I went to Rockport, Massachusetts to film a program in a hall. So they were audio engineer. And even there, I realized how scared I was when there were people. Because just, I haven't, you know, it's like anything, it's a muscle you exercise of going out on stage, you know, and it's going to be fun. But, you know, I look forward to hanging out with Mozart. And, it, you know, the whole video thing is very interesting because obviously we live in the age of technology, and, you know, we have archived concerts like a Tip and Rise, the archiving is very, very substantial. In many other halls, it's not, for a variety of usually financial reasons. So it's, in a funny way, we will leave relatively small footprint of what has happened in live concerts around the world. But now, in this last 2 months, everybody got into video production. And in some ways, we have all expanded what we do. Like, we certainly at Tip and Rise, but, you know, we are a summer season. And now we've been producing content throughout the year. And actually, we're going to start releasing some of the new videos that we have filmed. And we're just plotting to do more of them. So it's been very interesting to kind of ask ourselves, how do we share music, and what is another way? I mean, obviously there's nothing as wonderful as being in the same room together.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to stretch those parameters.
Right. And then you get into all the weird little legal things. It's easy to do it with public domain works. John Cage works are still copyrighted, so recording those isn't as easy. And
well, it's interesting because we're all in uncharted territory, including the idea of authors' rights, because in concert situations, there are established kind of regulations, how you pay certain licensing fee and all that. But now, in a way, we are thrown into like TV and movie business, which of course we're not, because we're not making, you know, $100 million movies. So the publishing companies are also trying to work out, like, what does this mean, and how do we value this, and what do we charge for it? It's been a really fascinating time for all of us.
Yeah, and it ends up on YouTube, and anybody can watch it for free. And it's a very confusing environment, tough to navigate. Well, we're come close to using up our time. I wonder if you've got any parting thoughts you'd like to share with the audience before they listen to you play.
Well, I guess the only thing I would like to share or invite the people to the concert, and you know, there's a certain stigma about classical music that you know, one has to know a lot in order to appreciate it, but I would invite people to just react in their own way. I mean, the beauty of the arts is that there's no value system in the arts. In other words, it's a very personal thing. You may like Leonardo da Vinci, and Billy Bob Smith may think it's terrible. So, and you're both right, because and then you may change your opinion 5 years from now. And I think that's really why we need the arts, because like food, arts is a place that's really your own, and it's your domain to decide what you like and what you don't like. So I hope that people can, you know, while listening to any music, can allow themselves to react in their own way, to like it or not like it, fully knowing that they can change their opinion later, and to kind of go with the sounds and see what they mean to them, whether they're pleasant or whether they're confrontational or they are friendly, or is it day, is it night, is it raining, is there grass, is there a hill? So anyway,
or snow, yeah.
Or snow.
Great idea. I couldn't agree more. That's great. Very well said. Pedja, we're looking very, very much forward to hearing you play and seeing you here in Billings. So
I look forward to it much and hope to see you all in the hall.
Travel safe.
Thank you.